So Alivia was first diagnosed when she was 5 in 2013. I called the nurse line and I said, this is what's going on. She's had balance issues. Her eye started crossing a couple days before. She's been vomiting and she's had headaches and she's getting really tired. And the nurse just instantly said, go to the ER right now. Her surgeon was able to do a total resection, which we were really happy about. But she developed posterior fossa syndrome after that surgery. So
yeah, she came out on the ventilator, couldn't breathe on her own. And then days after, we realized she couldn't swallow, she couldn't speak, she couldn't hold her head up.
So she has had a major road of recovery since that first surgery. And then she had a second tumor show up in 2017. They did a resection and then she did radiation after that. And then the third kind of cluster of tumors they found were in her spine. So they did a spinal surgery where they were able to remove one of the large tumors. She started on chemo after that. Mm-hmm. Her prognosis hasn't changed. You know, the doctors kind of told us that at this point we're not really looking at cure options for her. We're looking at quality of life and keeping her as healthy as long as possible.
Yeah. She's outside of the statistics right now. She's an outlier.
She definitely is, yeah.
So I was diagnosed in 2016. You know, I had no clue anything was wrong. I literally went to my eye doctor's office for my annual appointment to get my contact prescription renewed. And she said, you know what, Jennifer, for the second year in a row, you didn't do as well on your peripheral vision exam. I want you to go to a specialist. And he said, you know, I think something's pushing on your optic nerve. I want you to have an MRI. And the very next day, that's when I got the phone call. But I never saw coming. It was almost like we were talking about a third party because I didn't feel any symptoms. No headaches, no motor skill problems, no speech impediments, nothing. My tumor was not cancerous. However, because of its ominous location in the cavernous sinus, where it's partially encasing my carotid artery, my neurosurgeon had the wisdom to remove just half of it, and the remaining half of it was addressed with the radiation with the hopes of killing the remaining cells. Over the last 5 years, on an annual basis, I've had an MRI where they check the mass to make sure there's no regrowth, and thankfully there hasn't been any.
In my last year of residency, I decided I wanted to spend about 6 weeks doing a global health rotation. So I ended up going to Thailand in January of 2020. And then about 3 weeks into my trip, I started to have some tingling in my left hand and some trouble swallowing. And I was aware of the fact that these could be small seizures and I need to get checked out. And so then I found myself a patient in Thailand. I was rushed to an MRI imaging center. And when I got out of the machine, I walked back into the tech control room and I said, I need to see my own scan. That was an interesting moment because I remember my first thought was, shoot, you know, I'm gonna have to tell this patient some horrible news because she has a huge brain tumor. And it took me moments to realize that I was the patient. I was taken from the Minneapolis airport directly to the University of Minnesota, the hospital I was a resident at. And at that point, I was diagnosed with a grade 2 diffuse astrocytoma. However, I had not had a full tumor resection. So about a month later, I went through a craniotomy where they removed essentially all of the tumor. And unfortunately, that surgery upgraded my diagnosis to a grade 3 in anaplastic astrocytoma. I still get MRIs every 2 months at this point. Some have shown possible progression, some have looked very stable. My most recent one was very stable, so there's no sign of any active tumor, which is fantastic. At this point, I'm 17 months from diagnosis. Yeah, 2 brain surgeries, chemo and radiation later. It's been a busy year.
We were out riding our bikes on September 1st, 2018. And one of the guys got a flat tire, so they went back to get the tire changed, and we kept going. And all of a sudden, my girlfriend got the phone call that, you know, there had been an accident, and Kraig was suffering from a grand mal seizure. We took an ambulance to North Memorial, and immediately they saw a spot on his brain, and he had this anaplastic astrocytoma for 18 months, and he passed away the day after his birthday on January 7th, 2020. So he had just turned 59. Yeah, so we were able to give him a full funeral, and I'm so grateful for that. And shortly after that, we went into COVID, and that was hard. It was lonesome, but it gave me a lot of time to process and to spend time with God and to work through a lot of my grief. Well, Kraig and I grew up in the same church, so literally I was 4 years old when I met Kraig. He went to Bethel College and so did I, and that's really when we started dating, and we were married in 1985. Kraig was a carpenter. Really, he could build or do just about anything. He was very handy and very skilled.
When I think of my dad, what comes to mind is that he was caring, and he would always make you feel like the most important person in the room.
I came over the first time, and I remember we walked in, and he was just so nice and caring and interested in what my life was, and just made you feel warm and welcome.
I'm 12 right now, so I'm going into 7th.
She's a really social kid, and she loves to be around people. She loves to make people laugh.
She's a very good sister. She is funny. She never gives up. She is confident. She's like 1 in a million.
The hardest part of my initial diagnosis has been the point where I had to communicate what was going on to my family and friends at home.
Her medical training was certainly an asset, both for her and for us, to better understand and to better get our arms around this diagnosis and what to expect going forward.
But I think what Courtney helped the most with was helping us to adjust emotionally. She was just so grounded, and she has stayed that way since day one.
It's one of those things in life, you don't have a list of hospitals or doctors or methods of dealing with it. So we were, all of us, what do we do?
After about 10 minutes or so of laying on my bedroom floor, just curled up in a ball, I thought to myself, I can't let this consume me. And I made a list of reasons why it's positive to have a brain tumor.
And it's magnificent what she's done. Her book, her speaking, it's a wonderful thing.
For so long, I've heard her say, "Mom, I just want to help people. I want to give them hope."
By sharing my experience and trying to inspire other people, it's given it a sense of purpose.
She had to learn how to swallow. She had to learn how to speak, how to walk, how to move, how to feed herself.
The cerebellum is affected, and so her ability to regulate emotions was drastically affected. But as soon as they brought a dog into the room or a therapy rabbit, she just lit up.
I feel calm around animals. I feel safe. I feel loved.
The way that he battled brain cancer was really impressive to me because he was so optimistic.
He did the Optune therapy wearing the backpack and the electrodes on his head. He went through radiation like a rock star. I mean, he went through awake brain surgery. No fear. He was a fighter till the very end.
What I really care about is that she shows up and that she is the best version of herself possible, and that she can participate in life and be happy and find joy in the moment.
She was kind of forced to make the hard decision of like, oh, do I just let this take control over me, or do I do something amazing with it? And she's done so many amazing things with it.
Through my brain cancer diagnosis, I ended up finding a way to teach people in a really unexpected way through my writing and through my speaking. And I try to teach people how to really embrace life right now.
Kraig sat and he put his head in his hands and he just said, "I can't stand the thought of you having to take care of me."
My family were phenomenal caregivers, and I had friends that were the same way. Caregivers are incredibly important. People oftentimes just think of the underlying patient, but family is hurting too.
It was so amazing to watch her be a wife and a caregiver. She was just the strongest, most amazing caregiver ever for my dad. But it's very sad to see. all that she's had to go through.
Our faith really did carry us through. God walked before us, He walked with us, and He sent people to us. The kindness and goodness was just overwhelming.
Through this whole journey, it's so important to find the little joys in life. You know, she needs a childhood. She needs laughter and fun.
So I was so motivated by food. And it tasted great once I finally got it.
I will say the benefit and my high recommendation to get international health insurance when you travel is that if you have a medical emergency, you get upgraded. So I had a nice Delta One flight back home.
Somebody had mentioned to me at the hospital, after looking at the flowers and stuff, you know, Jen, a lot of these seem like they're colleagues of yours. And then she said, don't you audit them for a living? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, I'm surprised they're sending you flowers.
And we were at this uniform shop, and I was like, Kraig, don't tell anybody, but I'm gonna get this. And it was a full one-piece long-sleeved orange jumpsuit. Kraig got up the next morning with my husband and went back to that store so that they could get a couple jumpsuits too.
Kirk and I walked into the cabin and looked at them like they were crazy.
So the radiation tech turns on the music, goes into the observation room, but then with the microphone says, and today we have a little radiation for the ladies.
The physician whose job was to accompany me home on the international flight lost both of our passports, forgot the time of both of our connecting flights, and couldn't figure out how to get us from the airport to the hospital.
You can find the humor and the good in something. That's a good medicine.
I'm very grateful to have access to great health care and to the research that is helping try to solve the mystery of brain tumors like mine.
I would hope that in years to come, they would have increased options on how to treat it and that they would be able to live longer successfully with their cancer.
She doesn't have to worry about what's potentially in her head other than her dreams and aspirations. That would be amazing.
The treatments that we have that are now available came by research and funding and grants and experiments. And with that has to come money.
And her primary physician was just absolutely amazing. And every time that we talked to her, it was always talking about clinical trials, you know, always trying to move medicine forward. And that's what we want, you know, not just for Alivia, but for the people, you know, after us. And, you know, we need people's help to get there.
I hope I have many years left. I hope that by raising money, by helping promote more research, more innovation in the brain tumor world, that myself and many, many others have years left to live our lives. But if not us, then for the next generation.